Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato, and we're getting close to the draft, Nick. So you know what that means? It means let's do a little bit of a My Guys show. This is not our classic My Guys show. You'll get that as we get close to the draft. These are just two players that Nick and I have honed in on after watching tape and doing our background research on and looking up some stats, advanced and raw, that we said, you know what? We're comfortable enough to say these are my guys. So we're going to give you two players today that are my guys that we love from a prospect standpoint, guys that we're going to give you the picks where we would like to get them, and picks where we'd love to get them, but also the picks where we would like to get them, where we're willing to take them. And it just so happens to be that these two players came on played on the same defense in 2024, and it made it easier to watch because you're watching tape and you're seeing them both jump off the film. But these are two players that I think would make a massive difference for the Giants defense if they can get a hold of them, and two players that have a really good chance in my mind to outproduce some of where they're projected to go. Now, one of them is starting to creep up draft boards a little higher. We're going to start with him, and I think he's a little bit less likely the Giants can get him. But the other one is going to be in play on day 2 at some point for the Giants. Specifically, I even think round 3 personally, just given, the outlier aspect of which we'll talk about. But let's talk about these two players, and they're going to be, just so we're giving names out here, sometimes we don't do it. From Michigan, Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle, and from Michigan, Josiah Stewart, the edge rusher, linebacker, off-ball linebacker, whatever you want to call that. So we'll start with Kenneth Grant, the interior defensive lineman, Nick. There's still a possibility in my mind he could be on the board at 34. I would say it's unlikely, but I wouldn't say it's impossible the way that drafts fall. Teams need receivers. They're going to take a receiver in round 1. They need a corner. They're going to take a corner in round 1. Offensive line, quarterback. We could see Dart and Sanders go at the back end of round 1. You just don't know. And these types of picks push down players. Even if Omarion Hampton, let's say, goes, he could then push down. But let's say he doesn't. It doesn't matter. We'll find out later. The Giants could trade back. They could trade up for him. There's ways to get this player. But Kenneth Grant, to me, is a player, Nick, that I'm willing to put really high. If I had a big board, which I don't, I think I'd move him like insanely high up my big board after watching a lot more of him. So let me get into your thoughts on Grant.
First off, Grant's not going to be there at 34. I don't want to burst your bubble, but I think Grant could be a surprise, like top 10 pick. And I don't even know if it's a surprise because the ceiling, again, we'll do ceiling stuff. Not a big fan of comps. We're using them a little bit more because people like them this draft season. And let me know if you guys enjoy this. I do think the ceiling for a guy like this is a Dexter Lawrence type.
I knew you were going to say it.
Now, the thing is, I think
Planet Theory, baby.
It's a Planet Theory thing. Kenneth Grant, 6'4", 331 pounds, over 10-inch hands, monster mitts, 33.5-inch arms. I think Dex is a better overall athlete when it comes to moving laterally, but Kenneth Grant could still move just insanely quick for a guy of this size, and you could see it all throughout his tape. If you need him to anchor down against double teams, he'll do that. He gets low, there's a low center of gravity, can really sink his hips and then split these double teams as well. So when I'm thinking of defensive lineman in the league, I'm like, who does he remind me of? I wouldn't say he reminds me of Dex per se, but Dexter Lawrence fell to pick 17 in the 2019 draft. Right. I think the NFL can circle back and say that was a big issue. I look at Kenneth Grant. I don't think the NFL is going to make that mistake again. I don't think Kenneth Grant is quite Dexter Lawrence, but I do think the ceiling is there. And if you just need somebody with some pass rushing upside, just because he is so strong, still think he's a little bit raw in that area, but he hustles his ass off. I don't know if you saw the play against Penn State, dude.
Yes.
Oh, bro.
How about the play against Rutgers?
Yeah, he just chased Monungai. Was that the one where he chased Monungai from behind? He did the same thing against I can't remember.
Against the kid from Penn State. What's that kid's name? That Allen or their other running back, not Singleton.
Either way, it reminded me, that part reminded me of Dexter Lawrence against Baker Mayfield. Remember in week 2 of the 2022 season, Dexter Lawrence from like the far hash.
Oh, yes. I do remember that play. It was insane.
Yeah, when Baker Mayfield was on the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
Overall, man, I look at a dude like this and I just think there's no way. Like, this guy is a very high floor as a player. There's no way Kenneth Grant's going to be a bad football player. Like, if he stays healthy, this is a starting caliber defensive lineman who you can put out there on passing downs. And I think he has more upside than that because of his short area quickness and movement skills with his size and his power and his ability to bull rush and all of that. So I think he has first steps plus his hands are just dangerous. When you have that combination and you hone into it, especially with a defensive line coach like Andre Patterson, the upside is through the roof. And that's one of the reasons why I think this guy is ultimately going to be a top 15 pick.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player. Actually, the play I was referencing, I was looking back through my notes. It's from the year before. It was off the picks. Sainristil had a pick six, and Grant is out there running with Sainristil and then
Yeah.
seals the last block. The last guy from Rutgers who could possibly stop Sainristil, he somehow beats him to the spot, running downfield and seals that block off. Insane level speed. Now, he tested 5.13 in the 40. I think he's a perfect example of someone who's much faster game speed wise with pads on than he is in the 40-yard dash testing, which means nothing. The real thing is GPS tracking and how you look in the game. But with that bad 40 time, which people have knocked him for, he did have an elite 10-yard split, which I think you touched on, just that immediate burst off the line of scrimmage. 6'3", 331 at the combine, insane level athlete, Planet Theory type player, 83rd percentile wingspan and 72nd percentile hand size. Despite the fact that he is raw, like the thing is, like Dexter Lawrence, for example, Nick, right? Like if he was the pass rusher that he is now, he would have been the first, second, or third overall pick in that draft class. He really would have been. But he became a better pass rusher at the NFL level. That's why he went 17 overall. The Giants, Dave Gettleman, I give him credit for this all the time, and he deserves it. His best pick by far, the best thing he ever did for the Giants franchise, recognizing what he could become as a pass rusher. I think the same is true with Grant. I don't think he's going to be that level of Dex, but with the idea of he can be a much better pass rusher than he is now. But that's not to say he's not already a good pass rusher, right? Like over the last 2 seasons at Michigan, he had 8 sacks, 50 pressures, 39 run stops, and an 87.5 run D grade. Like he's already one of the best anchors at this position, and he's going to be a great run defender for the Giants and fill the exact thing they really need on the D-line. But the question is, and why you're right, he could end up being a top 10 pick, is because of Planet Theory. It's like someone who moves that well at that size, can he also become what Dex is as a pass rusher? Because then he's worth a top 5 pick, top 10 pick, whatever it may be. So ultimately, I probably think you're right. He's probably more of like a top 20 or 15 than top 10, but you never know. I mean, this is a player who Jim Harbaugh referred to as God's gift to football. That's what he said when he was his coach. That. Like, that's the type of player that we're talking about here.
Absolutely. Now, it doesn't mean he's perfect. This is still, and this is one of the reasons why I think he'll go higher than people are projecting, is he's not great with his hands right now. I think that's a work in progress. You see the flashes, and if you type in his name on Twitter or whatever, you'll see flashes of him, getting up, using the forklift move, uplifting people, bowling you through him. I think there was a play against Michael Penix Jr. where he put 71 on skates. 71 ended up stepping, and this sucks for offensive linemen, right? They step on their adjacent lineman's foot and then they fall backwards. But it was Grant dictating the rep and winning with his hands that put the offensive lineman in that position to where he fell on his ass. But regardless, right? I think there's still an untapped ceiling here with his hands and his pass rushing. And for me, when it comes to the Giants, if this guy were to be around at 34, I don't think that's going to happen again. You put him next to Dexter Lawrence on that line, game over, right? With Andre Patterson. I think you could just, like, we talked about this with Abdul Carter a couple podcasts ago, right? Like, this is a dangerous combination, especially with the Giants. Imagine the Giants double dip. They got Abdul and they ended up getting Kenneth Grant with, it would be.
They got Carter and Grant, dude. Like, what the hell?
They would need to trade up in the first round. But again, man, like, he could play nose 1, 2. You can him over to 4-eye if you want to run some sort of tight front with Dex as the nose. You could put Dex as the 4-eye with Grant. Again, that's if he were to go to the New York Giants. But just overall with his skill set, man, I love players who who can first anticipate the snap instantaneously, right? And then they understand how to leverage their hands and win right away, know where the blocks are going to go, have the eyes to see what the offense is trying to do, and then go against the grain to penetrate and remove themselves from the blocker's path, and then win with backside pursuit. And if you watch Kenneth Grant's tape, Wink Martindale did a great job putting him in that position consistently to where he can earn these tackles for a loss, or these plays where the running back had to completely alter their path to where Mason Graham or one of the other players ended up getting a TFL based off of Kenneth Grant just winning his rep and knowing how to win his rep right off the snap. So you're talking about a smart player as well.
Yeah, for what I look for at the position, he would be probably a top 15, 20 prospect in this class for me. Not just at this position, but like in general, is what am I trying to add to my football team? I am trying to add a Planet Theory guy who already has incredible anchor and production against the run and could be potentially an even better pass rusher, though already has signs of being that. In addition, being the athlete he is from those 2 plays we said, where he just shows the effort of running down those 2 players, the Penn State running back, or just setting up that block for Sainristil. So if it's possible at all to get him at 34, he's easily my first pick. I'll shout out Authentic, who I was talking to about this. He's like 99.9% chance he won't be on the board at 34. I think you're probably right. This is just not deep enough, this draft class, to probably have him fall into that range. But he is an IDL. I just want to make that clear. IDLs drop sometimes when they shouldn't.
Nah, I mean, I think you're pie in the sky, but you know what? Have
Probably
that
do.
pie up there, bro. Have that pie up there.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
crazier things have happened. This guy could just pop up on the day before the draft, the day of the draft, with a bong and a gas mask, and we don't know. We don't know what could happen.
but then we're not drafting him with John Mara, so I think that would actually not work out in our favor.
He might go first overall at that point, right? Like people will be like, "Oh yeah, we messed up with this one."
Can you believe it? I mean, we could have had Tunsil over. What was that? Apple or was that
That was
Flowers? I
Apple.
think that was Apple.
That was Apple.
Disgusting, just absolutely disgusting to think about right now.
And Apple didn't even take a pre-draft meeting with the Giants.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy to think about. It's
after already being the guy that scouts were like at the combine, this dude sucked in meetings. Like he was immature as hell. That was what they said about him. That's all the Giants had to work with.
And
like,
his
what
tape
was going on back then?
Wasn't even that good either.
No,
yeah,
it was just a traits-based pick. It was like the Tony pick. It was just like and that was a different regime. That was Jerry Reese, but just so many mistakes the Giants have made in their past. Hopefully they start to rectify those. And it's funny because process-wise, those weren't the same mistakes that led them to Neal and Thibodeau, but ultimately those might end up failing as well, potentially. So it's just like it's so hard to win in the draft is what it comes down to. But Kenneth Grant, interior defensive lineman from Michigan, really one of my favorite players to evaluate in this draft class. I think he's much better than consensus. Let's get to another player, though, who has become one of my favorite players in this draft class from a profile standpoint, Nick. And I talked about Kenneth Grant taking over some games, the USC game, for example, that I watched on tape. But this player actually was even more dominant, I thought, than Grant against USC. And this is a player who will be on the Giants radar. I think he might be one of their perfect type picks at 65 overall, depending on obviously what they do in round one. Because if they do go Carter in round one, they're probably a lot less likely to go with this player in round 3 at 65 overall. But if they don't go Carter and they go Hunter, this guy comes into play, and he's Josiah Stewart, the edge out of Michigan. So I want to get to your thoughts on him, and then I have some really insane stats about what he did at the college level.
Kenneth Grant had very, very violent hands on tape. Josiah Stewart has Super Saiyan pop-on contact, and it's surprising because he's short. He's like 6'1" and some change, but he's 250, stout, and you can see good thickness through his body. But the issue is sub 32-inch arms, and that's not great when you're an edge rusher. But when this guy sets his feet into the ground and he tries to bull rush you, the power and the force that he can generate and through contact gets me so excited, Dan. Like, I absolutely love how violent and sudden of a mover Josiah Stewart is. And you can see, God bless you, how many offensive linemen, or how much of the offense tried to mitigate Grant and specifically Mason Graham. And they were like, all right, well, we'll have a tight end deal with Josiah Stewart. That's never going to work. No, the tight end would always lose those reps. And it's like, all right, let's let the offensive tackle. Nope, Josiah Stewart's too quick, and he ends up just dunking inside, making a TFL, running around the edge. Just an absolute nuisance. This is a player who was at Michigan for, I believe, one season. He initially attended Coastal Carolina for 2 seasons. And so, or maybe he was at Michigan for 2. He was at Michigan for 2 seasons. He won the national championship, and he was a part of that whole thing. A former 4-star recruit, but he was a 4-star recruit in the transfer portal coming from Coastal Carolina. I don't think he was really regarded much at all.
No,
I think he's a Bronx kid, if I'm not mistaken. Ends up going to Coastal Carolina, balls out of his mind. Ends up at Michigan, helps him win the Natty, and then this past year is just an absolute nuisance as well, with talent all around him, but it just seemed like offenses had to, like, mid-game, if you're watching the game, they're not really paying attention to Stewart. And then third quarter rolls around, you start seeing like slide protection towards Josiah Stewart a little bit. You start getting a little bit more respect, and then Mason Graham makes a big play. So it's I love players like this, man, who are they understand how to employ a bunch of different power moves, and they have a variety of ways to win. It's just the one reason why this guy is never going to be a first round pick is his measurables. And it sucks, right? But this is why the Giants might be able to get this guy at 65.
Yeah, it's the reason why he not only will he not be a first round pick, he may be available at 65. There's even a chance he could be available, this type of player, at 99 or 105, because there are enough teams that just take him off the draft board entirely, depending on their system, depending on what their coaches ask. This happens all the time at the NFL. When you don't fit a certain prototype from these measurables, which we'll get over in a second, which we'll go over in a second, and that's wingspan, hand size, and length, you may just not be on a team's draft board at all. So then there's one team or whatever it may be that don't even consider you, and it leads to you falling. And he will have to be an outlier, in my opinion, Nick, to meet his potential and to match the production he put on college tape. I'm just willing to bet on him as an outlier, and I'll explain why in a little bit. A lot of that is character, a lot of that is production based, and kind of outlier levels of production that he had. Go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. The great year of 2025 is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE. Yeah, man. I mean, this second percentile height.
That's what I was going to go over. So it's second percentile height, horrible. Fifth percentile arm length. That's the one that I think really will take him off a lot of teams' draft boards. 25th percentile hand size, not good either. Like, you don't want to be there as well. And then 30th percentile wingspan. Those are all really bad numbers. But like you said, I think it's the height and it's the, what was it? It was the height and the arm length that are really going to take him off some boards.
And he's only 249, which is 13th percentile
Sure.
for an edge rusher. Now that can work in certain defensive systems. Like, this is a good 3-4 outside linebacker. You could put him as a Sam, like a juiced up Andrew Van Ginkel or something like that, right? Like he can thrive in a role like that. Bless you, buddy. But yeah, a lot of teams are going to look at him and say, no, sub 32, we're not taking a risk on that. This is a player I would take a risk on. And Dan, please tell the audience why through the stats and some of the quotes about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, so those are the negatives, why he could drop. But now let me just talk about what I had in my notes for why I liked him. First of all, he was the 5th highest graded edge in all of college football with a 91.3 grade, according to Pro Football Focus. So just from a production standpoint and the grading scale, one of the best players, but it goes well beyond that. I felt like he's not afraid of contact at all. He had the rep against Indiana where there's a pulling blocker off the edge and he just bangs him, forces the running back inside. He plays incredibly physical for what his size is. Sure, there's no wingspan. Sure, the hand size is small, but I don't think it really matters. He threw his body into the run game, into contact in the run game, and that wasn't just that rep against Indiana. The Michigan defensive line coach called him, quote unquote, easily, and this is according to Brett Coleman, easily the toughest player on the team. Do you know how much that means when a Michigan coach is saying that? Michigan has literally the toughest strength and conditioning program and environment created in college football. They expect so much out of their players. That's why they keep having players drafted. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, all the players who were selected in last year's class, because they put that environment together. And they're saying that this kid who's 6'1", 250 is easily the toughest player on the team. And you watch it, he is that guy in the run game. And then incredible marks off the field from a character standpoint. I think that he has multiple. What are you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at, I'm watching like the cut up that I made of him and the USC tape. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
go for it.
There was a play where he won inside so quickly. The offensive tackle is just like standing there, and all you see is the quarterback release the football and then just nothing. You just see his number, like you just see like number 0 just running right through, just like sprinting right through, and the quarterback's just like Thanos came by, snapped his finger, and he's just gone, bro.
It's crazy. It's like you've just that game alone. We'll get to some other stuff here, but that game alone, he had 8 pressures against USC, 4 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks in a game. That is taking over an NFL game right there. But it goes way beyond just that one game with him. I felt like throughout his tape, he had multiple pass rush moves, which is something like, oh, you expect a prospect like this to not be able to have. I thought he did a great job specifically with speed to power, which you don't expect for a player his size. He had the dip and rip that you saw on there. I mean, there's a rep against Minnesota. They have what I forget this guy's name. I think it was I don't know how to pronounce it. I found the name. Arante Lamont Ursary. They're Minnesota guy who's like 340, and Stewart is 250. And he bull rushes this guy. This guy has 100 pounds on him. But you know how he wins? He's 6'1" and he wins the battle with leverage. I actually like sometimes these pass rushers who are low that can just win by just winning just simply with center of gravity being lower than the other player. But that's like, regardless of what your center of gravity is, to push somebody who's 100 pounds heavier than you back into the pocket is kind of insane.
Especially when you have elite lower body drive and elite lower body strength. And that's what Josiah Stewart has. Like, he has some elite traits. It's just those measurables that are going to work against him. And then we didn't even touch on the fact that he was a team captain and all of this other stuff, man. I mean, dude, this guy is
amazing.
A backside pursuit defender. Like, you can't just read this guy because he's so damn quick. He accelerates so fast. He's such a sudden mover. How many times going through his tape where it was like a halfback zone, they just left him on block on the backside and he just tracks the guy down. It's a -1, -2 yard gain, right? Especially if the rest of the defense, like Michigan's defense did with Wink Martindale, was able to hold up and not allow that running back a quick north to south. I love that team defense there and have that unblocked defender make the play. He was elite at that, but he was elite at a lot of other things as well.
He was, and it's similar in some ways to what we talked about with Abdul Carter on that profile, like how the ways he wins as a run defender, in my mind, the ways that could also be very concerning as a run defender, which again are why teams are going to drop him. But let me just talk to you a little bit about his pass rush profile from a reduction standpoint, because some of these numbers, Nick, are going to be shocking to the listeners, and they're going to be really shocking to me as far as why would this guy ever fall outside of the top at least 35 picks in a class. So, and again, it's because of the size, because the outlier stuff, but he had the highest pass rush win rate in the entire college football last year at 27.7%. It led the class. It was best in class, 9 sacks, 37 pressures. But also, if you want to do it even better and you just filter it out, all edge rushers in this class, their pass rush win rates, when you just filter the true pass sets, which is important, he was at 38.7% pass rush win rate with just the true pass sets, which is, more specific. The second best player was Braden Swinson at 30.1%. Abdul Carter was fourth at 28.8%. We're talking 38.7% there. 141 true drop back pass attempts. That takes out the screens, the RPOs, and the play action. 38.7%. That's how productive he was as a pass rusher last year at Michigan. It was best in the class by far, really, when you filter out what matters there. So we're talking about somebody who immediately, in my mind, would give the Giants an ability off the edge because of what you discussed on the last pod, Nick, which is when you have Dexter Lawrence in the middle and you have Brian Burns on your defense too, it's going to lead to some one-on-ones, just like it did with Kenneth Grant in the middle and Mason Graham. We're going to have some one-on-ones there, especially if you get this guy at 65 and at 34, you take a defensive tackle or an interior defensive lineman. Let's say it goes Hunter at 3 for the Giants. At 34, you get an interior defensive lineman, and then you got Josiah Stewart at 65. You're building towards something that is really impressive on the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely. And talk about high effort, tone setting. This is a team captain type. This was an alpha in one of the most alpha oriented programs in college football. And not only was he an alpha, like, this isn't a 5-star guy. Like, he didn't have that type of pedigree. He started from the bottom and then he just earned it. And everybody in the locker room absolutely loved him for that. And on top of all of this, grew up a Giants fan as well. I didn't know this, but I saw Madeline Burke tweet about it. And then I saw him speaking about it at the combine as well. So, I mean, it's like, dude, this could be a match made in heaven for him. And he's the type of individual from all the information that's out there. I mean, anywhere he goes, he's going to embody his job and he's going to do his best, but he comes to the New York Giants with all these pieces that the Giants have. I think he could be like such an asset for what the Giants are attempting to do.
Yeah, I would be really excited if he becomes a Giant in 3 weeks from now, Nick. And you mentioned that he grew up as a Giants fan. He talked about his fond memories watching each of the 2 Super Bowls. And then where he grew up, he talked about it. But then he actually moved to Boston, and he was talking about how he used to talk trash to people once he moved to Boston about winning those Super Bowls. So was a real Giants fan. And I just want to do one more note on that stat I brought up earlier, the 142 true drop back pass attempts, the 38.7 pass rush win rate. This is Brett Coleman who had this stat. everyone he's looked at over the last 10 years on a sample size that large, 142 true pass attempts, drop back pass attempts. No one, not Bosa's, not Myles Garrett, he said, nobody had a better pass rush win rate than Josiah Stewart. Kind of insane to think about that type of stat. And yet, again, the length of the arms, the hands, all that stuff is going to make him not be a top 30 pick because of that. But outliers have worked in the NFL plenty of times, and usually it's the stuff that you said, the character, the off-field stuff, the leadership. As the Michigan defensive line coach said, the most physical, toughest player on the team. That's the type of stuff that usually means, oh, wow, we found the gem of the draft, or leads to that, I should say.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and bring up this name and because this is one of the better, more intimidating defensive players over the last 20 years, but there were shades of James Harrison in there.
Ooh.
That's what I like collected. Now, again, that's high praise and it's meant to be high praise. So take it for what it's worth. But do you see what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Maybe not the same level of just freakish strength that Harrison had,
I
but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, Harrison, but like it's the low nature and the ability
Yes.
it's the ability to use the
That low
ground and leverage to your advantage. There were so many plays through Josiah Stewart's tape where he was so low into contact, and you see this big burly offensive lineman trying to be like, first off, he wins the pad level battle a lot, Josiah Stewart. And this offensive lineman is attempting to just collapse on top of him and engulf him. But somehow the core strength and the lower body strength of Stewart would not allow him to do it. And the way he angles his body mitigates the offensive lineman's ability to really impose and enforce and maximize their strength on Stewart. And then Stewart just has this determination and ability to locate the ball carrier and make the tackle. And you could see that all throughout his tape. And as I said a little earlier, teams had to start adjusting their approach because like, this guy's kicking our ass right now. Like, what the hell are we doing? Right. So love that about him. One of the reasons why his pass rush win rate was so high, not poo-pooing him, just honesty. It's a lot of teams had to focus on Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, mostly Mason Graham.
Which they're going to have to do with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns.
Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. Exactly where I was going with it, baby.
Yep. I'm sorry to cut you off because you were going to get there. I just was thinking and it came to my mind. I was like, damn, this is exciting. Outside of round one, where
sometimes you can't contain the excitement, you know?
No, you can't. And outside of round one, where it's Hunter and Carter, this is probably one of the prospects I want most in this class. Now, I could say there's a bunch of running backs, Nick, that we'll get to at some point that I'll say I want. They'll probably be on the short list of players I want most. Those guys are day 3 for me, though. Like, I think there's going to be some insane running back values on day 3 of this draft class. But as far as day 2 goes, there's not really any players I want more than this player that I can realistically say will be available. I wouldn't take him at 34 because I don't think you have to, but I wouldn't even kill them myself if they did. Like, I wouldn't think that's a craziest. They're just like, I know this guy's going to work. And like, I am willing to bet on this character and this toughness and this production. I wouldn't even hate it there. I don't want, again, I think they can get him at 65. But if I find out that they take him in round 3, Nick, like at the board, like I said, Hunter, Grant seems crazy to say there, but you know, there's a few other guys that can profile similarly at interior defensive line, and then Stewart in round 3. That's a hell of a draft haul for me on the first 2 days.
It's an excellent draft haul. It's one that I would sign up for too. And
even though they miss on O-line.
Yes. The offensive line, this is where it gets interesting, right? I want those offensive linemen too, but if we could focus on this defense and solidify this defense, the defense was a problem last year. It was a big problem. The offense was the bigger problem, but I think the primary reason why the offense sucked was the quarterback position.
Yep.
And then the offensive line was adequate. I still would like it to be improved, and I want young blood in there as well. But focusing on the defense and just solidifying that run defense finally while adding more juice to a pass rush, I think that's exactly where we want the Giants to be. The Giants offense should, knock on wood, should have some more leads early in games to allow this pass rush to actually hit their stride. Because last year they led the league in sacks for I think the first 8 weeks of the season, something like that. And not a lot of people talked about it because the Giants sucked and they had 2 wins, but the Giants never really had leads. These guys were not pinning their ears back. They were not rushing passers late in the games. We belabor this point, but it's very important to say right now with the players in this draft, there are players who can add to this pass rush and this run defense to just make it that strength that we saw glimpses of last year that we hoped would flourish throughout the season. It can just realize that. It can actualize that as long as the offense with Russ Wilson now can move the football and not put this defense into these terrible situations where it's 3 and out on the field, 3 and out on the field, and then you're down by 10 and the team's just running the football down your throat towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and then the other final, just to close on this, the exciting part about what you just broke down is they led the NFL for so long in sacks despite really not blitzing. So what does that tell me?
Yeah.
Well, if you have guys on the back end who can take advantage of that, you could be looking at big plays too. They didn't really have that last year outside of Newbin, who kind of maybe wasn't mentally ready for that. Newbin takes a step forward. He starts making plays on the football. Paulson Adebo is a playmaker on the football. Holland, a playmaker on the football, or at least it was at one point in his career. And they're hoping to get him back to that point. So now you have that added to the mix as well. Not only do you have a dominant pass rush with these ads that we're projecting potentially possible in the draft, but you have guys on the back end who can make teams pay for it.
Absolutely, man. It's exciting draft we have here, and Josiah Stewart is one of those guys. If he can be landed at 65, that's a win for the Giants.
Short list player for me, man.
Short list player, short arms, got it. He's going to work out, and I think I said. Let me read my synopsis about him real quick.
Let's do it.
Josiah Stewart possesses a quick first step with excellent force into contact and the ability to convert his explosive nature into power while also possessing a speed bend combination to win a high side, albeit his bend is not elite. Stewart is praised for his work ethic and toughness, and his play is indicative of his praise. He's always going full speed and is an absolute terror on the edge. His biggest issue are the measurables. His height and lack of length will turn teams off and could force Stewart to slide in the draft. If that's the case, he will be an insane value for a team who wants a rotational edge who understands how to create pressure and is athletic enough to drop into space. He'll likely start as a 3-4 outside linebacker with upside who will thrive early as a pass rushing specialist, but he'll always be fighting to overcome his measurables. Still, if I'm a general manager, I'm finding a way to draft Josiah Stewart. You're muted, buddy.
All right, I was saying he's got some more construction going on. He's an outlier bet, and you're making an outlier bet when it comes to betting on a player like this. But I think the rest of the profile leads me to believe that he will be an outlier, and that's why I want him so bad in this draft class. A shortlist player for me that I want the Giants to draft. Hopefully it'll happen. We'll see what happens. We got a few more weeks to go. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in and supporting the show. Please like this post right now if you haven't already. Click the like button, and then also subscribe if you haven't done that. We're close to 10,000 subscribers. I haven't talked about this months ago. We need to get to 10K before the draft night. So
love it.
I don't know. You're probably already subscribed if you're listening, so you can't help us in that regard. But if you have a friend or a family member, even if they don't maybe want to get into podcasting or listening to podcasts and YouTube shows, just make them create or have them sign into their YouTube account and just subscribe for us. Do us a favor. We really need your help. And then comment as well on these shows. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.